cool to meet y'all. I'm Daniel Card. Trisha had a huge influence on me going to UT Arlington for the Shorthorn. They have a phenomenal student newspaper. The journalism program, as far as like schoolwork, isn't the best, but the student newspaper is what drove me there, and it was definitely worth it. So if you're looking for a four-year institution to go to, I can't speak highly enough of that one. That's the one I would recommend going to. So I was on the Ranger. I went and started 2013, and I went to December 2015. I worked various positions from staff photographer to photo editor to multimedia editor, and then back to staff photographer. I personally think the staff photographer position was the unsung position because it was, I don't know, I just thought it was a lot of fun getting to do that one, and you didn't have to deal with all the editorial stuff, which was just, that was tough. It was hard for me to focus between editorial and assignments. I always wanted to put the assignments at the Ranger first, and I always forgot about schoolwork. So I'm sure a lot of y'all have done that as well. I then went to UT Arlington, and I was on the Shorthorn as a student photographer there, staff photographer there. I then graduated in 2018 in May, and I began an internship there in October, where I was there for 6 months. I was freelancing after that, and then I wanted to go back to the Middle East because I actually went in spring break of 2016. I loved it. I love the people, and I wanted to be in that region because I liked it all so much, and it's also easier to get around if you live there than it is to buy tickets back and forth. And so I ended up in Beirut, Lebanon, with some other journalists that I had met when I was in Iraq the first time, and I have been living there since February 2020. I got there 2 days before their first COVID case, and so it's been a wild ride since then. I don't know if any of y'all kept up with the news there, but the pandemic, which went into total lockdown. They shut down airports, economic collapse. There was a revolution going on before I got there, but the pandemic sort of killed it. They're kind of trying to bring it back. We had a massive explosion and one of the world's worst financial collapses in 150 years. I think the only worst economy right now is in Venezuela. And yeah, that's a little bit about me. So like I was saying, Trisha asked me to speak about working for Wire Images. So I freelance, and I've worked for Getty Images, who I have a lot of work with going on with them. I do quite a bit for them in Beirut, and I worked for AP, Associated Press. Not as much, but I have worked for them. And I will say all the stuff you're learning in the Ranger is very beneficial. I remember my first AP assignment, I actually got yelled at by an editor in New York, and I was there with Tom Pennington and a few other people, and I was just like, what is that guy's deal? And every one of them like, are you with the AP today? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, oh, that's so and so, don't worry, we've all had him. I got yelled at for one of my captions because there really wasn't anything happening in the caption, and so I didn't have a verb. I was just like, so and so at blah 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 on this date, and I was just torn into over a phone call about how I need to put a verb in, and it was just like, I don't. So yeah, make sure if you're ever doing anything AP, put verbs in and really always use it in. I think I ended up having to go with poses, but they weren't even posing. There was nothing else to really say about them. Anyway, tangent. I'm gonna run a slideshow. If y'all have any questions, feel free. You can ask me any questions. Some of these are ongoing projects. Some of these are things I've done for the wire services. I've done for Getty and other people as well. It'll vary. I've got some stuff from breaking and hard news to a photo assignment, photographing for Paris Fashion Week, but they were doing it remote, and they were models and video stuff from that. So it's your assignments with a wire can vary greatly. It's good to have skills doing all sorts of things that you've also been learning at the Ranger, I'm sure. You'll keep up with. So feel free to ask anything that y'all want. I'm going to try to figure this out. I'm not very tech savvy. Is it Where's screen share at?
Should be at the bottom.
At the bottom, it's a green color. It should be a
Oh,
green.
share screen. Yeah. Okay. So we will do desktop. Oh, control. Is it showing it?
Nope.
Give me 1 second. What is it saying to do? Oh, where did it go? Oh, I see Dr. Lowe.
What?
Oh, I see you.
You click the share screen away a little bit. Maybe.
Security and privacy to grant access. Okay. System preferences, security. Sorry, I didn't realize it was like this. Last time I did it pretty easily. Security and privacy. Is it doing it now? What is this?
I don't know. Did I just do mine? I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Okay. You should be able to share multiple to
Yeah,
participants.
it's saying I need to do a security thing. I'm trying to figure that out. Here's the Zoom. So it says share screen. Photo mechanic. It says hold. Open system preferences. What is it? I don't. I keep saying I have to share, but I don't. It's not giving me the option to do that. This is gonna be bad. System preferences.
Mandy, do you have any suggestions?
Turn it off and log in again. Maybe. That's what Trisha said. Shut it down.
Ran into this in one of my mass comm classes, and I think the kids figured it out, but I think you had to log back in. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll try that.
Log out and log back in.
Okay, I will do that. I'll be right back.
Okay, let's see who's here. This time to take attendance is good. Jonathan is here, right? We have Veronica. It's Gabby. We have Jose is here. Louder is here. Justin is here. Oh, it's working.
Okay. Let me. Why is it now?
Play?
Here we go. I'll put it on about 8 seconds, a picture. That should be good, right?
Oh, yeah.
I can even do 7. Is 7 good or 8? I can't remember what a good. We'll go 7.5. Okay. All right. Like I said, so this is actually one of the most recent things that I did. This wasn't for a wire, but I actually represented by Zuma Press, and they just released it as a Z portage. It's about a D minor. And this they didn't put me on. It was for the Guardian, and they didn't put me on commission. It was on spec, so that means I went and I paid for everything myself, and then they were like, "We'll give you a flat rate afterwards." So I did that, and then I started marketing it to other publications as well in different countries, because I found that if you do something for a British English publication, you can still market it to a French and German, and they'll buy it as well, and they'll pay us still a nice price because it hasn't been published in their language yet. And so this was about a D minor who he's the man on the left or right, and he had stepped on 2 landmines various times. He's a double amputee, and he demines land at a rate. He says if a NGO does it in a month, he can do it in a day. He doesn't do it by regulations and stuff. He's pretty careless and reckless when he does it, but he does it for free, and he does a really good job of it. And so I just went and I spent a day with him. I wanted to spend more, but this is just that project. And then there's another project coming up, and it's going to be some portraits of landmine survivors, because this is something that I came up with a personal interest in. And I think it's also really important to have personal interests that you work on and that you do for yourself. Um, I mean, it's nice that I was able to sell them, but I do it because I legitimately care about the issue of demining operations in the world. I've previously gone to Cambodia to do it, and so I think it's really important to have projects you're working on, even outside of work assignments. Um, and oh, there's one thing I want to say about like a lot of times people say you got lucky with things, and I was talking to another journalist, and he made this really good. He told me this really good saying, and I think it was from a Greek philosopher or a Roman philosopher, but it's luck is opportunity meeting preparation. And I think that is really important to remember as well, because a lot of the times getting like with wire services that I've gotten with and with other clients that I've had, it's just I got lucky and I met someone via networking, via Trisha pushing me forward, saying, telling me one of Trisha's kids, to taking advantage of when I've had the opportunities to go listen to people speak, like when other photographers would come to the Ranger, I would go and I would talk with them, and eventually opportunities came from that. But I got lucky because I happened to meet him, but I also kept preparing to get to the point where I could do that. And so I think some of the best news that I ever had, I sh- I shadowed. I don't know why that was tough to say. I shadowed Darren Abate, and he gave me the best advice. And he's like, I know it's not profound, but it was the best advice I was ever given. And it's shoot, shoot, shoot. And that really is the best advice that I think I can give anyone as well. Just go out and practice all the time, always photograph. Uh, I mean, I have my camera with me probably 98% of the time, even though I don't use it every time I take it with me, but you never know what might come up. If you ever see something and you think about photographing it, stop and photograph it. I drive to Utah, and recently my road trips have become a lot longer because every time I see something, I pull over and photograph it. And so what's normally would take me like 8 hours is now taking me 11 hours at least, because I stop a lot to photograph. These are landmine survivors. Actually, most of these men were, they worked for a demining group called MAG, Mine Action Group, and they were all injured on the job. And they were actually, I found out just by talking to them that the NGO actually kind of abandoned them. And they all told me, how can they call themselves humanitarian workers when they've thrown away their humanity? So this is something I want to actually keep working on, is about how some of these deminers have been betrayed by their people. They were injured on the job, and the NGOs kind of just left them, gave them, like, some of them they gave them nothing, some of them they gave them a small amount of cash, and then never helped them or did anything to help them ever again, which I think is a travesty, and that's something I want to keep working on.
And an NGO is?
It's a non-governmental organization. It's a aid group like Amnesty International, the UN Refugee. There's quite a few. There's like Caritas International, MAG, Amnesty International. What they do is they provide aid, and they are not government organizations, as it says, to help people. They're pretty much nonprofits, but they do various things. And NGO is just another word for what they're doing. Yeah, so there's a bunch of various ones like that, and I have found that some of them are really good, and some of them, even though they're not supposed to be there for the money, it seems like it's really about fun. So, yeah,
How do you communicate with these guys? Obviously, you don't speak.
oh yeah, well, so
Interpreter or
I do what, and for us, what we call them is fixers. They're also known as producers. I hire a local person who speaks the language and can help me get the assignment, and that's how I work in certain areas. Some of them people do speak English. I'll show you one guy. He's actually really funny. He got blown up and he lost one of his eyes, and he actually has an American eye transplant. So when I was talking with him, he was telling me I need to take him with me because he's at least partly American, and he was like, we can maybe get my eye a passport. And he was a really funny guy. But for the most part, I don't speak Kurdish. And so I hired a man named Aras Maman. Uh, we have a working relationship, but I also consider him a good friend. Um, he was an army translator during when the U.S. was in Iraq, and he worked for the U.S. Army, and so he speaks English and he knows how to translate. And now he does journalism work. Um, Phenomenal guy, and you pay him a rate. He actually gave me a really good discount because I am a wire and or not a wire, but I was for a print publications, and print publications usually have the lowest budget. And so he gave me a good rate, and I worked with him for about 10 days. And he sets things up. He does the driving. He helps me find stories. I kind of tell him the direction I want to go in, or I'll ask him about something. Hey, is there something that maybe I haven't read about in the news that you think is important? And so they are highly underrated. They don't get enough credit. I personally, whenever I send something in regard, this is the guy with the American eyeball. But so whenever I try to cover something, I try to always put their name in and give them credit, because they don't not get enough credit for what they do. Um, and if he was working for me and I was doing a video thing for like a TV channel or whatever, they would get a producer credit, but in print, they are under things. So if any of y'all ever end up needing a fixer in there, I will gladly set you all up. There's also groups that we belong to on Facebook. There's news groups that are kind of secret from the rest of, they have them, and it's kind of, you have to know people to get in. And what we do is we share information like this. We'll talk with other people about, hey, is this a good fixer? Is he reputable? Is he safe? We communicate with each other so that there's a safety network going on with other journalists, and we'll give advice to people. Hey, like, is this area I'm trying to get into here? And so as you kind of going along, there's like a network of journalists who also work together to help keep each other safe, and who can recommend fixers and stuff like that as well.
Okay, clearly we're back in the United States because that person had a chainsaw and a beer can.
Yeah, so this is something my younger brother does. He does downhill skateboarding, and this is just something that fascinated me, because these guys hit like 60, 70 miles an hour going down mountain roads, and they're kind of their own subculture, and they travel the world, and they're kind of will travel together. So I wanted to tend to understand it better, like what it is about this that they all love. How is it they do it? And so I started photographing my brother when he'd go do stuff, and I'd go with them, and I started photographing some of their races. And it's something I wanted to follow as they travel, because a lot of them will fly to like the Philippines or to Europe, and they'll link up with other downhill skateboarders who'll host them, and then they'll skate together. And it's something I've just been working on. This is still an ongoing project, and my goal is to show what it is about this that is such a strong community, and what makes them what they are, because they seem to care about each other, but they also, they party hard, and they live for a downhill extreme sport. And so this is a personal project of trying to connect better with my brother by understanding what it is that he loves so much about what he does. So yeah, that's something that's really, have your own projects that you're working on as well. This one right here is about my stepdad. I actually just began it. He was put on hospice, and I was trying to connect the only way that I could think about how to connect, and that was to photograph. And so that's what these black and white ones are about. It's just my dad's cancer and hospice thing going on. Yeah, I haven't done a whole lot of work on this one yet. This is just a couple days worth, I think, of stuff, maybe two, but I'm trying to show how it's going. And like, I'm trying to show like varying types of frames that you do, like close, big, focus on the face, further away, different focal points. Right now his head is on the right, and this one it's bigger on the right, but earlier I had stuff on the left, and I'm just kind of showing stuff like that. And this one is regarding the family one. So this one will probably, hopefully, it'll live a long time, and I'll be able to work on this for a long time. But we'll see how that one goes. But I figured I needed to do something, because I haven't photographed enough of my family, and I want to use what I've learned to do something meaningful for them. Yeah. So how many people are in the photo department this semester?
We have 3 photographers.
Okay. I'm,
And Dr. Lowe's class is how many people?
Oh yeah, as a news photo class, that quite a few of them work on the Ranger also.
okay.
Yeah. And then 2 photo 1 classes.
Nice. Nice. Here's another, this is a road trip project that I do. I stop now whenever I see a cross on the side of the road or a memorial on the side of the road, and I've started photographing them because I just think they're very interesting. And this one, actually, I remember I was in the Ranger when I came up with it. I saw a road crash while driving in during a winter break one time, and I remember thinking like, oh, Dr. Lowe would have told me to pull over and photograph that. And I remember thinking that, and so that's what I kind of started doing. And yes, the things you learn on the Ranger, you will remember. I still sometimes will hear either Dr. Lowe's voice or Trisha's voice about things, either pushing your chair or Dr. Lowe, like, oh, why not over there? Go over there. And so I still hear them as like little angels on my shoulder telling me what to do on some assignments. So they will stick with you even after here. That one's actually up 281 near Blanco. And this one was in Utah, but this is just something I try to do whenever I see a roadside memorial. I think they call them descanso in Spanish. Can't remember, but it's just something I wanted to work on. This is back to the Middle East. This is the Beirut blast. They had me working for Getty Images for almost 10 days. I think 10 days straight. It was a lot. It's not the best pay. There are some publications that pay better, but my ultimate goal is to be on a wire service. And so I kept just saying yes to them because that's who I want to work for. And I'm trying to keep my name available with them. But this was all related to the blast. I actually called one of the editors after the explosion happened, and I was a bit hysterical, but I told him, you've got to let me photograph to stay sane. And he said, yeah, absolutely. Just make sure you're safe and your family's safe and all that, which I think is really phenomenal. I know I heard a lot of horror stories about editors and publications not caring about any of their journalists at all. And just asking insane demands of journalists that were injured and telling them, well, you need to get out there anyway. And I got really lucky, and I had a phenomenal editor who cared about me and was just telling me to make sure that I'm important, I'm safe first. And they had me do one assignment, completely fell through what they were asking for. It wasn't viable. And I called them immediately afterwards and I said, hey, Jay, like this assignment, I couldn't do it. What you were asking, there's not enough time. There's no way to really do what you want within a 45-minute span like you were asking. And he was really cool about it. He was like, you know what, that happens. It's okay. And I still had my assignment with them, and I've got to say, I got really lucky with Getty. Getty seems to really care about the people that they have on the ground. At least that's how it seems compared to some other publications I worked for. This is protests following it. This is all kind of stuff related to the blast that I've just kind of put into one thing. And a lot of them I've met through Trisha. Like Trisha introduced me to like Tom Pennington, who's a news and sports photographer for Getty Images in Texas. She got me in contact with him and gave me his information. And so I did that. That's kind of how I started getting stuff with Getty. In fact, Tom Pennington eventually is the one who got me in touch with their signing editors so that way I could photograph for them and get a contract. So, networking is really important in our industry. The moment you're ready to work, you got to have that networking set up. I always have people ask me like, well, how is it you're doing it with this? And it's honestly, it's just about networking and taking advantage of the opportunities that you come your way via the Ranger. And if you go on to other educational places, do that. I recommend internships. I didn't at the time, but they are incredibly important. It'll help with the networking and it'll help you form skills. That was a 2 month later thingy. Oh, this is the 1 year anniversary of the explosion. This was a wild time. And they were going there. They blamed the government. And here's a soldier shooting. I don't know what that flame was coming out of his gun, but they were shooting at the guys behind a wooden board with rubber bullets and tear gas. Does anyone have any questions about wires or anything? No? Sure.
Is there ever a concern about your safety as you're covering these events?
What about it? I mean, like, is there something that you, is there a question for, like, are you asking what I do to protect myself or?
Correct. Yeah.
Well, there are training things that you can participate in. And as a freelancer, they will offer it to you for free. I do have some training because I'm an Army veteran. But at events like this, I have a construction hard hat that I will wear. And I have a gas mask. And I'll see if I can show you, but I have a gas mask that I wear as well. And sometimes, things happen. I mean, I've been hit with rocks by soldiers. And you try to do the best you can. I try to de-escalate situations. I've been threatened stateside covering events. I've had people of the far right threaten my life and threaten to kill me. I've had members of self-declared anti-fascist people threaten me as well for photographing them. I've had protesters in Beirut threaten me. I mean, I try not to let myself be intimidated too much, but I also have to protect myself. So I try to do things that I can. I am actually trying to buy some bullet body armor as well. I do have some in Lebanon, but it's not really rated for rifle rounds. It's good for handgun rounds. So I need to buy some different types of plates for that. But there are training exercises you can take. They'll go over first aid with you. They'll go over cybersecurity with you. They will go over other things as well. I'm a member of NPPA. So there is actually someone that they have that you can talk to about security issues. And I've had a conversation with one day, and they were talking to me about body armor, because even though I was in the Army, the body armor wasn't something that you discussed. I mean, it was just what they issue you, and we didn't really go over it. And so I was talking to him about what kind of plates I need, safety issues regarding that. And so these are things that you do as well. And you just try to, you got to remain anonymous. I mean, you can't, I've seen people who claim to be journalists at events in the US and they're not, they're activists, which I think endangers our lives. But you got to think smart about what you're doing, come up with a safety plan. I usually, when I'm photographing, there's other photojournalists that I know who we work together. In my wallet, I have a card that has my safety contact and my blood type in case anything happens to me. But I will, I'm usually working near another photojournalist who knows me. And even though we don't plan to go out as a team, you usually are ending up working as a team with another photojournalist that you're there. But in some places like this one, it was just me and the fixer. And when I was in Iraq, it was just me and the fixer. And so in those instances, it's just you putting your whole trust in this person. That's why it's important to, have to know about them, and why as there's that journalism group where we all share information. It's that way you can, know whether or not it's a safe person to go with. And so there's things like that. But there, steps you can take. There are courses that you can do that are free to journalists, that are freelancers, to help you become more aware of what you're doing and understand how to keep yourself safer than what you might have without knowing it. So these last images, I went out one day, and this is about this. Excuse me. This is about how much I would send in as a on just a single assignment. I sent this all to Zuma because I didn't have another wire, and Zuma represents me, but this was all stuff related to power outages because we have massive power outages and the whole grid system is failing. You can see only a couple of these places have lights on, and it's because they're the few residences that were able to afford a generator or a private generator service, like this one light right here. And so I was just trying to show what it's like to have a power system grid failing a nation. And so I went out one day with a buddy and we'll wander around and we go into some kind of areas that aren't necessarily the best, though. Like I said, for safety wise, I'm with another photographer. We look out for each other and we just kind of watch each other's backs. I mean, we never have any issues, but it still is a good thing to have somebody who's watching your back because when you're photographing, you're not always aware of what's going on beside you in that moment. And so it's just a nice little safety-ish thing. Did that answer your question? Did that answer your Okay, well, hopefully it did. Yeah. That was a good question about safety. Yeah, there are courses that you can take in it. I think it's important to understand what's going on and to look into what could be potential threats when you're there as well. Have a plan to what you're going to do. Oh, so this is just a funny thing. This is the second in command for Hezbollah, which is a terrorist organization in the US. And they had this Führer sign behind them. And I couldn't miss it because it was like they have this, head terrorist guy with a Führer sign. And in my head, I was like, yes, that's awesome. And so I photographed that one. And that was, something I thought was hilarious that I sent in. And these, I think, are mostly just some singles from being out and about refugee camps and things. And also when I go in, so I know some people try to go in and they try to make it all about doom and gloom, and they kind of have this, like, as they call it, poverty porn. I try to go into assignments whenever I'm covering anything that could be sensitive or even seen that way. With one, I don't try to go in with any preconceived ideas of what I'm going to photograph. I mean, I know I need certain things, but I try to keep my head clear of it, and also try to go into thinking like, if this was my family, how would I photograph it? And I try to keep that in mind when I do photograph it. So that way you're respecting the dignity of people. I mean, I know there has been a big thing where journalists have said we are the voice to the voiceless. I don't think that. I think what we are is the amplifiers for the voiceless. We're like a megaphone. We're using our platform to tell their voices, because I think everyone has a voice. And so I try to hope that my photos are respectful of the people that I'm choosing to photograph when I do go out there, and that it's respectful. This kid was at a Hezbollah hummus rally, and he was just super happy to be there. And so I was photographing him. I know some people would try to show him all as, scary people, but it's just other people as well. This is a tattoo for someone who's killed in the explosion. This is his brother. I try talking with people. I was asked how, like, when I'm photographing landmine survivors, if I feel like I'm being intrusive. And I don't think I am, because I talk with them and I listen to them and then I tell them beforehand. And I've had one person who didn't want some of the types of photos, and so I just respectfully did it and didn't do it. But everyone else has been usually pretty open and sharing, and I try to be honest with them about why I'm photographing. A lot of times they'll ask what can come from it, and I will tell them honestly, maybe nothing. I'm just trying to bring awareness. I hopefully get more money towards this if that's what it's for, but I don't have, I don't try to lie to the people. And if you tell someone something, like if you tell someone you're going to give them a free photo from it, do it. I think the best way you can find out if you're a journalist is you might not actually hear it, but it's what the people who you photograph say about you to the next journalist. And I've heard some pretty bad stories from people that I've photographed, and then I've also heard them tell me some pretty amazing things about journalists that have been there. And I think it's important that we, remember that it's not us, it's for them. And so we, people need to make sure they're being honest and not lie to the people that they are choosing to photograph. Oh, this is Hagia Sophia. So when I do go places for my wire agency, I try to photograph stock footage. So that's stuff that can be used kind of timelessly. And then I'll send them to my wire who will find people to buy them. But that was Hagia Sophia. It's the world's oldest Christian cathedral type thing. And the sun was just setting over it. So I was on a ferry, and so I was like running across the boat as the boat was moving because I was trying to keep the sun. So I had to keep moving to keep the sun above it. And this is inside of another refugee camp. These two guys were just having their morning tea and sharing a phone. This is a pandemic photo. This fisherman was one of the few people I saw out during the pandemic. Okay, so this is the model stuff. During the lockdown, but this is the model stuff. This is a completely different thing, which I actually found I love being in a studio where they have all this light. I need to do more to get to that point, but there's a lot of fun just having like good lighting with people that know how to make every way they stand look amazing. It's completely different style than what you do for editorial, where as an editorial photographer, I try to find the good light and I try to work with that. Here they had great light. There was just everything I did or everything I was trying to do, they would photograph as well. So this is Tony Ward. He's the fashion designer. I added this one because, like I say, I try to give when I'm working for a wire, I try to photograph stock stuff for them as well. I try to do things that, okay, this will sell for what the moment is, but this can also sell for later on if they look it up. So they call it stock footage. And so when I'm out there, I do try to get other things as well that can be used for them that can help the wire make more money. I know it's thinking about them, but I think by doing things that can help them keep selling their images that I've made for them will help keep me working with them, because I'm a good investment to them. Versus someone who might not give them any stock footage. I try to give them extra stuff as well, like here's a famous building, just so that way they have it on their hands to use for when their clients want it. And yeah, this was some stuff I wish I learned. I know we learned a little bit of light stuff, Dr. Lowe, but oh, man, I wish I would have learned way more, because I'm slowly kind of getting more of it just by photographing, but learning how light goes that way. But studio work that's a lot of fun. Yeah. I hope are you gonna keep teaching, Dr. Lowe?
Your mic's not on. He said maybe.
Okay. Well, I hope so.
Oh, if I don't have enough money to survive, I'm gonna start teaching again.
You don't want to go back to editorial and freelancing?
Oh, I'm too old for that. My muscles and bones are not working well.
Come on, Dr. Lowe, come to Lebanon with me. We'll go out together and photograph. I'll get really good hiking shoes as a photojournalist. I walk so much and I've climbed so many flights of stairs. After the explosion, I climbed like 60 flights of stairs in one day because I kept having to get a high advantage. And maybe it'd be good if I invested in a drone, but I don't have a drone yet. So, and I've walked miles upon miles, and it's just, that's what you do most of the time is you take your shoes and your camera and you just go walking with water and talk with people on your way. That'll help you come up with story ideas. One of the story ideas I learned about was an animal, was it a refugee? No, animal sanctuary type thing that they had for these animals. And so you just, by going out and talking with people, you'll come up with ideas and you'll hear things that people find important. And this is the end of it. Sometimes, see, these are the gas masks that we use. And the guy on the far right here, that's Marcus Yam, who I always thought was really cool. And he just happened to one day show up there. So, yeah, if there's any questions about any of that, I can go over. If you have any questions related to those images or anything else about what I do as a freelancer for Wires. I know Laura, is it Laura? I know you want to work
Yes,
for
I'm here.
Wires.
Actually, I have a question.
Okay.
How is the participation of women in this kind of job? I mean, for example, in the Middle East,
Mm.
did you meet women doing like photojournalism and this kind of work as you?
I do. I have met. There was a woman named Natalie Sansa. I can't remember her last name right now. She just barely left, but she was working for a Spanish newspaper for a while. There's another woman named Liz Fitt, she's an English woman. I do meet quite a few women. I do know more of the women that I meet usually are reporters, but there are some who are brilliant photographers that are out there as well. And I follow others. There's an Iranian woman that I follow and we converse with, and there are women staff photographers out, or photographers as well. It's mostly freelance that are photojournalists. But in Beirut, I can think of, just off the top of my head, there were the three. They're mostly, that from what I've met, yeah, they're either writers or they are broadcast reporters. So, I mean, there's always, I don't know why exactly that is. I do know women photojournalists though from around the world that are phenomenal, that work for Wires. Like, what is her name? I remember I was sharing her name with you. She's in Bogota, and she works for Reuters. I've met Hannah McKay from Reuters London. I met her in England, and in Beirut. She came for the explosion, and she was phenomenal. And she gave me a short tour of London. There's Nicole Tung, I think it's Tung. I don't know how to say it, but she's Chinese and she lives in Istanbul. And I met her, and she is a phenomenal photojournalist. I think she's one of the women photograph. She's part of that, and she'll come in. So a lot of the also female photojournalists I met have come in from other places. There is a woman I know of named Mariam Boulos. She is the first Arab woman female photographer for Magnum. She just barely got onto Magnum the other day, and she's really good work. There's I can't think of this woman's name. She's a French Thai woman. Yeah. Anyway, so yes, there are female photojournalists in the region. Just in that image right there, it was just we're kind of spread out. There were protests all over, and that was where a lot of the action was happening. So we were just in that spot at that moment.
Oh, I see. I asked because sometimes in that war zones or in that kind of countries, it's like most of men. So I don't know, in my country, for example, it's kind of dangerous for some women to do journalism that I know. So that's why I asked.
Well,
But
it is.
it's amazing that she getting the Magnum. That's a really big agency.
Yeah, and I will say it is predominantly men still, but women have beautiful access that men don't get. Lindsay Adario, she is an American freelancer, and she get access in Afghanistan, and there's other places that they can get. I mean, it can definitely be more dangerous for women. That's definitely true, but it can also open up doors that men will never get. We might not, especially in conservative areas where men won't get the same access. Men won't be given access to talk with the women really in the same way that a female reporter and photographer will. And so they get doors like that. And you'll find also in a lot of places, so what they call Southern hospitality in the US has nothing on what you'll get in the Middle East. I mean, there they really will protect you. And I mean, that hospitality is very different there. So in some ways, as you know, you'll be well protected just by being a tourist there. And so, I mean, yes, there are definitely dangers to women that men won't necessarily face, but also there are things that women will get better access to that men won't.
Thank you so much, Daniel.
You're
The
welcome.
photos are amazing, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? Anything that I didn't talk over, touch? And then we only have a few minutes left.
What other languages would you recommend that students learn?
I recommend learning whatever language that you want to go to. So I took Spanish at the university because all my friends who speak Arabic told me don't learn Arabic at the university, learn it at whatever nation you go to, which is the worst advice I'd ever received. And I completely regret not studying Arabic at the university. But I mean, if you're planning to stay in the US and cover things in the US, I highly recommend Spanish. I mean, I mean, that's just the language that I think is going to be, the most beneficial to what's going on news-wise. But if whatever country you're wanting to go to, I highly recommend learning the language I mean, it'll open doors to you in ways, it'll open a whole new world for you. I mean, thankfully, a lot of people in Lebanon speak English. And I think that's also contributed to why I'm so terrible at learning Arabic, is because I try to speak any sort of Arabic and they go right to English on me. But yeah, learning the language of wherever you're at is so important. I mean, you want to be able to communicate with the people in their language. I mean, lost in translation is a real thing. There's so many things that I'm sure I've missed because I didn't speak the language. And it also opened the doors. It shows the people that you care about them as well, that you're willing to make an effort to learn what their language.